Do you want to know what cards will be in the new set? Then let me show you Phantasmal Flames. Hey trainers, what is up and welcome back to another video. Today we are reviewing every card that will be released in the next upcoming set. So Phantasmal Flames is going to be released on November the 14th. So that's only 4 weeks away. So we better prepare on what's coming. So the most notable to start off with is going to be the Mega Heracross. It has the Panzer Horn attack, which means if you attack with Panzer Horn and you'll get counter-attacked but not one-shot by another Pokemon, you do that much damage in return. So just imagine you getting hit by a Phantom Dive from Dragapult. So you get hit by 200 damage, you're not knocked out, but you do 200 damage in return next turn. So the Panzer Horn is effectively doing 300 damage next turn, which is huge because we would expect a revenge type attack, but is this kind of a revenge type attack? Just a bit different. So we'd love to see new mechanics. And the next attack is going to be Mountain Thrust. As 170 damage for 3 grass energies and discard the 2 top cards of your opponent's deck. So we will get to see a lot of mill cards in this set. So my question is mill coming back? Or has it never left? Alright, and I do have to give credit to this Gloom because I really find it amazing. So you remember the video I did on Hydreigon with Gloom and Vileplume? If you haven't, I would link it somewhere over there. But essentially, the Gloom from 151 has this ability where if you evolve from your hand, you get to search the top cards of your deck and attach any energy cards you find there. Now just imagine we would add another Gloom to it, especially this Gloom, which does bench damage to both your opponents and your side. If you do play any form of Munkidori, for instance, or you would play the other Hydreigon from white, right? And you would use the Technical Machine Blindside with Ignition Energy. I mean, this Gloom is already doing the work for you. So just imagine. It's not going to be a meta-relevant card, but it's some onesie wild card. Let's just say that. Right, next up, it's going to be the Ludicolo. So this set is also going to focus more on healing. So Ludicolo has this excited healing ability. So once during your turn, if you have a Grass Mega Pokemon EX in play, so that can be either, it doesn't say evolution, so it can't be either the Heracross or a Venusaur, perhaps. Yeah. And you get to choose which Mega Pokemon you heal damage from. But it doesn't necessarily say Mega Pokemon. You may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. So it can be any Pokemon, basically. So you get to set up your boards and heal where necessary and play Professor Turo's scenario to heal even more and just, you know, outlast every single attack, depending on what deck you're playing, of course, or playing against, I should say. Alright, next up, we do have the Genesect. So the Genesect has an amazing attack because we're already not seeing a lot of Shaman in the format at the moment. But I suppose we do have to see it in the future because we do have a Snipe attack for a 1-prizer, which is going to buff grass decks even more. And even more so if they're playing Meganium as well. Because what does Bug Cannon do? So choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and this does 20 more damage to it for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. So essentially, if you're playing Venusaur, you can just channel the grass energies to it, and if you have Meganium in play, it's counting double. So let's just say the Genesect has 5 energies attached to it. So 5 energies times the 20, that's 100 damage, but it's doubled with Meganium. So that is 200 damage on the bench for just 5 energies attached to it. That is insane. So grass energies are going to get a lot more buffed with this Genesect. Or I should say, just the Venusaur. Right, next up. And I think this is going to be impactful for Charizard mostly, because this Charmander doesn't only have 80 HP, it's rugged, it will resist the Dragapult's Phantom Dive, plus the Hawlucha plays. No, it has a nimble ability. So if this Pokemon has no energies attached to it, its retreat cost is 0. So an 80 HP Pokemon with usually double retreat has 0 retreat cost now, which is amazing. And also it's viable because it does 20 damage. So in a world where we see a lot of Bidoof plays, the 20 damage is going to be relevant because imagine if you have 3 or 4 Charmanders in play, or let's just say 1 or 2, with the 80 HP, you can just attach the benched one, retreat the active one, knock out the Bidoof, and just take a prize card. Alright, next up, we have this Charmeleon, which has a beefy 110 HP. Yeah, man, power creep is a thing. We got to see a 90 HP with the Flare Veil, we got to see a 100 HP from 151, and now we have this 110 HP Charmeleon. It also has a steady fire breathing attack. This is going to be relevant as well because the Charmeleons in the past had an attack which you had to attach to for 70 damage and you had to discard one at the end of your turn. But this one doesn't. Right, next up, and I think everyone is going to be waiting for this one, is going to be the Mega Charizard X EX. Now, this one is a beast of a Pokemon. It's a stage 2 Pokemon with 360 HP with their Inferno X attack. So Inferno X states, discard any amount of fire energy from among your Pokemon and this does 90 more damage for each card you discarded this way. So essentially we can play this with a lot of supporting Pokemon. We will get the Oricorio, of course. We will dive in that in a second. We could use it with some unorthodox Pokemon. Let's say for instance we use it with Team Rocket Spidops, because Team Rocket Spidops says that each turn you can attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to this Pokemon. It doesn't state which energy. So, just imagine the Charizard being played with Team Rocket Spidops, attaching fire energy to it, and then just discard it with Inferno X. You can even play full energy switch in that deck. Just attach with the Spidops, energy switch, attach full turn to the Charizard EX, and just do a bunch of damage. Yeah, this will be the card and the deck once again. Alright, next up, and I think this card deserves a lot of credit because that one will see a ton of play. So for 1 fire energy, this one has a boosted attack. So Fighting Wings says, it does 20 base damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon EX, this attack does 90 more damage. So essentially, you're doing 110 damage if your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX. So let's just say there's a lot of grass decks going to be in the future. Of course, with the Genesect, Raging Bolt, for instance, or Terrabox. And there is a Teal Mask Ogerpon in play. You can just attach 1 fire energy to the Moltres, or even just a Luminous, or a Prism energy perhaps, because it's still a basic. And then you could just use Boss's Orders onto the Teal Mask Ogerpon, hit for weakness. So the 110 is going to count for 220 damage. And that's just blowing my mind because you can take sneaky KOs for just 1 energy and take 2 prize cards for it. Yeah. This one's going to see a lot of play. And also imagine in Dragapult TX where you do Phantom Dive for 200 and you barely knock out the Pokemon. Or not barely, but just not there quite yet. Your Dragapult gets knocked out in return, and then you finish the job with the Moltres. Yeah, you see where I'm going? Right, next up we have the Oricorio EX. So just as I said, it has the Excited Turbo ability. As often as you like during your turn, if you have any Fire Mega Evolution Pokemon in play, you may use this ability. You may attach 1 Fire Energy card from your hand to one of your benched Fire Pokemon. So this will be your most notable Fire supporter in the Mega Charizard X EX deck. But your opponent will know this as well, so that will make the Oricorio the main target and not the Charizard X EX. So to counter this, you can either put a Bravery Charm on it, you can play Lively Stadium, which is very popular now, or you might even play Legacy Energy in the deck, you know, to protect your Oricorio even more. Right, next up, and I think this will be the most impactful for Ceruledge decks. So we have this new Charcadet, and I love the artwork on this one, but that doesn't matter because it has that Gather Power attack. It's similar to what the Gimmighoul has from Surging Sparks, you know, the minor errand running, but it's only with a fire energy. So Gather Power says, search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them, and put them into your hands. Yes, that's going to be relevant because Ceruledge wants to discard energies, and having those energies in your hands means less likely you have to draw those energies next turn, which you can essentially throw away with Ultra Ball, throw away with Earthen Vessel, or maybe even play Professor's Research on top of it. Yeah, that one is going to be relevant. And it doesn't stop there. We get a 1 prize Ceruledge, which does 220 damage, but there is a downside to it. You need to discard 4 fire energy from your hands, or this attack does nothing. But that doesn't matter, because you can just tech in 1 or 2 superior energy retrievals, which are going to help you set up even more so. Because just imagine, you get to discard even more energy. You get to draw 4 energy, and then you discard them again to do 220 damage? Yeah, this is not going to be a problem. And I'm super hyped for this one, because, spoiler alert, this is also going to be a pre-release promo. Yes, of course. And I know I want to be going quad Charcadet, quad Ceruledge, and just go with 32 energy Yes, please. Imagine that. And another Pokemon I'm super hyped about is this Rotom EX. Do you remember the Rotom deck profile I made? If you haven't, I would link it somewhere up top. So essentially, the Rotom deck profile from Distant Rivals says for each tool card attached to any of your Pokemon, this Pokemon does 30 damage. So for 10 tool cards, the Rotom does 300 damage. Plus, with this Rotom EX, every Pokemon with Rotom in their name can have up to 2 tool cards attached to them. This is insane! Unless that Pokemon leaves the boards, then every double tool card needs to be discarded. But just imagine, you're behind on prize cards and you attach 2 counter gains to it. You can basically attack for free and take big one-hit KO knockouts. Because the Rotom comes in different formats. You get the Grass Rotom, that's the Mo Rotom, you get the Wash Rotom, you get the Heat Rotom, and the regular Rotom. So essentially, the thing is, you need to always hit for weakness. So it doesn't matter what deck they're playing, they're getting one shot. Yes, and I'm going to play this one. This is going to be a lot of fun, and it's definitely one of the onesie wild cards. Alright, this is a thing, and you need to be scared of it, because I do think Confusion will be the next control. Yes, why do I think that? Because of this Mismagius. So this Mismagius has a Swirling Spells ability. So if this Pokemon is in the active spot, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, and when your opponent switches in a new active Pokemon, being if they even switch or they Turo and they promote again, it is instantly confused. And there is going to be a new stadium card in the set, which we're going to cover later, but confused Pokemon will stay confused, so they will need to always coin flip if they want to attack until the Mismagius leaves play. So that's why I think God of War players will adopt the Flutter Mane again. Because the Flutter Mane says your opponent's active Pokemon's abilities are shut down, that one's going to be relevant, and I think you need to remember that. Because it's not just God of War, I think any deck can run the Mismagius. No, not Mismagius, but Flutter Mane. Yeah, basically if you attach an air balloon to it, you can always retreat it. But do keep in mind the evil tile that just came out from Mega Evolution. It can stall Pokemon. So this new control deck might be having some tricks up its sleeve, so bear in mind. And I think Mismagius will be played with this new Whimsicott. So just imagine, you promote a Pokemon with boss's orders, which they can't knock you out in return. You can just attach an air balloon to your Mismagius, retreat to the Whimsicott, attack with the Healing Cotton, heal all of your damage from your Whimsicott, Stadium is still in play, the Pokemon is still confused, or you just use U-turn, you switch back to the Mismagius, and your opponent's Pokemon is confused again. Yeah, so think this will be a big part of that control deck. I haven't seen any decks of it so far, but I do imagine there will be some in the future. Right, we are getting a new Zacian, and I think this one will be pretty cool. So it has this limit break attack, which does 50 base damage, and if your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, this attack does 90 more damage. This is going to be relevant, not in the standard format, but in the pre-release format, because Zacian is going to be a pre-release promo as well. So bear in mind, if the opponent is playing the Zacian, you do know how to knock it out, or just how to avoid it. But it does need 2 energies to attack. So if they're not playing any Crispin or any Energy Switch or any other Energy Acceleration, do need to attach 2, which costs them 2 turns to attack. So that's the upside you have. So next up is this Bramblegast, and is also going to enforce that confusion part I talked about. So it has this Panic Prison ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may leave your opponent's active Pokemon confused. So again, this will be relevant because they always need to coin flip before they can land their attack even, and maybe even with Gravity Gemstone. Gravity Gemstone says the Pokemon has 1 retreat cost more, so they can't attack, and then even if you play Pokemon League Headquarters, they would need 1 colorless energy more to attack. So that's going to be very disruptive, and you need to be prepared for it. Alright, this one I think will be the most fun deck you would ever play, either at locals or the pre-release even. It's the Paldean Taurus. So the Paldean Taurus has this Raging Charge attack. So it has 40 more damage for each of your Pokemon with Taurus in its name, and that has damage counters on them. But you can cheat that in play with the Risky Ruins, which came out in last Mega Evolution set. But it states Pokemon with Taurus in their name. So it can be Paldean Taurus, which gets you 4 copies, but then you can play the other Taurus from 151, which is an additional 4 Taurus even. So that is 8 Taurus, which you can bench maybe just say 7, and then with the Terra Pokemon and Area 0, but then you couldn't get the damage counters on it. So yeah, you see how this deck is not flowing very well. But if you do have, let's say, 6 Pokemon in play, they all have damage counters on them with the Risky Ruins. That is 6 times 40 damage. So essentially, this Paldean Taurus for 1 fighting energy can do a staggering 240 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Yeah, you see where everything comes into play? You can even play 4 Crispin in this deck, just to spice things up. Alright, next up we have this Flygon. I remember where I said where Mill is going to be a thing again, or always was a thing. Yeah, this Flygon is going to enhance it even further. So it has this Flapping Sand ability. So when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, or when this Pokemon is knocked out, so it can happen even 2 times, you can discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. So just imagine you evolve 1 time. Yes, you play Professor Tura's Scenario, you evolve another Vibrava. That's another 2 cards. Then you use the attack from Great Tusk. You discard 1 more because you play Professor Tura's Scenario, of course. But if you do play Professor Stardust Vitality, that would mill 3 more. So that would mill 6 cards in 1 turn for the cost of your own consistency, of course, because Flygon is a stage 2 Pokemon. But you see how this all comes into play. Yes, we do need to prepare for more mill in the future, and I'm very happy about that. Right, next up, we have Mega Sharpedo EX. This is going to be one of the very new archetypes from Phantasmal Flames. So for 1 Dark Energy, it does the Greedy Fangs attack for 70 damage. That's not going to be relevant much. It can KO basic evolving Pokemon, of course, and you get to draw 2 cards, which sets you up even more. But it has this Hungry Draw attack, which costs 2 Dark Energy, and it does 120 base damage, and if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it, this attack is 150 more damage. How do we cheat this one into play? So we can essentially play Team Rocket's Venture Bomb and just hope we fail it, so we get to do damage to ourselves. So in a way, we can do 270 damage that way, and we don't need to get attacked for it at first. So I think this will be very cool, especially with a new support Pokemon, which we are going to see in a second. So remember when we talked about this Mega Sharpedo EX? Yes, this Toxtricity will be the best supporting Pokemon for it. So it has this bad upper ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for 1 basic Dark Energy and attach it to one of your benched Dark Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. This is going to be huge because it's accelerating energy from your deck, meaning if you attack with the Sharpedo, you get to draw cards which are going to be less likely going to be energy cards because you're going to fetch them out with Toxtricity. If you're going to have 2 Toxtricity into play, then you can accelerate a lot of energy and draw a ton of supporting cards from the top of your deck, being able to set up the next turn and the next turn and just close out the game. So I do think Dark Pokemon are getting the support they finally deserve. Yes, and that's not all, because Toxtricity is also evolving from Toxel, and this Toxel has the Call for Family attack. So essentially, you also know the Call of Family. Pidgey has it, the Solrock had it from the Diancie Flames. So a Call for Family searches your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. So if you go second, you have yourself a bad start, but you do start with Toxel. You can just attach to it, use Call for Family, and you have yourself a nice setup. Alright, next one, and I think a lot of people will be hyped for this one. It is going to be the Empoleon EX. It has this Counter Stance ability, so you prevent all effects done to this Pokemon by the attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. So that means Alakazam won't be even able to touch this Empoleon, and also the damage counters from Dragapult's Phantom Dive won't even hurt it. And it has this Iron Phaser attack, so for 2 metal and 1 colorless energy, you do 210 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attacks. Plus, you can buff this even more with the Iron Defender item attack that came out in last set during Mega Evolution. Yeah, this Pokemon Pokemon is going to be tanky as hell, so better prepare for it. I do think this one is going to see a lot of play. Alright, Archaludon deserves its support Pokemon. We know it's not the best deck, and it deserves every support it can get. So, Archaludon is going to get another Duraludon to evolve from with the Hyper Beam attack. So what does Hyper Beam do exactly? So it does 70 damage, but you get to discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So, you get to discard. That is huge. So the worst enemy in the Archaludon decks was the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX. If you attack it with this Duraludon, you get to discard an energy from it, meaning they get to set up a lot slower, meaning they need more turns to attack. If they don't find an energy or a Crispin, they can't even attack with it, whilst you get to Hyper Beam every single turn. And then with Iron Defender, you get to survive another turn even. Yeah, this is going to be relevant. I think this was the Pokemon that Archaludon needed. So this is going to counter the Cornerstone counter against the Archaludon, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And if that wasn't enough, Archaludon is getting another 1 prize Archaludon with the coated attack. So for 3 metal energy during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon can't be damaged by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. So remember when I talked about the Mega Pokemon being in play? So remember when I talked about this big Mega Pokemon where 3 prize cards and that basic Pokemon can one-shot them? You know, being the Raging Bolt, for instance. Yeah, this coated attack is going to counter the Raging Bolt. So I think Archaludon is finally getting the support it deserves. Yes, and I think a lot of people, including my local community, will be very, very happy to see this one. Alright, next one is another one you rogue builders are all going to love. You remember when I did this deck profile of the Seismitoad? Yeah, it had this round attack. So now we get another attacker with round in its name. So we get to fill our bench with round attackers. Yeah. And we get even to play a Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX, we get to play Area 0 Underdepths, and we get to play 4 Wigglytuff. So the Seismitoad can do even more damage, or the Wigglytuff does it as well. So what does Round do? Round does 40 damage for each of your Pokemon in play that has the Round attack. If you have 8 Pokemon in play with the Round attack, you're doing 320 damage, which is going to one-shot a lot of Pokemon, and then with damage modifiers, like Maximum Belt or the Brave Bangle, you're going to one-shot even the Megas. Yeah, I think rogue builders will be very happy to see this Wigglytuff, including me, and I think I will add this to the onesie wildcards. Right, next up we have a Pokemon a lot of you will be excited about as well. So we have this Mega Lopunny EX. So it has this Gale Thrust attack. So it has 60 base damage. But if this Pokemon was on your bench during this turn, this attack does 170 more damage. So essentially, this is going to be a switch heavy deck. So we'll need a lot of single prizes which have free retreat, or even multi prizes with free retreat, or you're going to use the Lanoon, which the Lanoon says it has this Excite Dash ability. If this Pokemon is on your bench and you have a Mega Pokemon EX in play, you may use this ability and switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. So with this ability, you can reset the Mega Lopunny's attack, and then you can attach an air balloon to the Lanoon, retreat it again into the Mega Lopunny, and do the Gale Thrust again for maximum damage. And then you have the Spike Hopper attack, which does 160 base damage, and this attack damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So essentially, this is another Shred attack like we like to say as well. So this is a Shred type attack that goes through anything, like Crustle for instance. Crustle isn't going to stop this Spike Hopper attack, and it only costs 2 colorless energy, which you can accelerate even with Crispin. So essentially, in the Mega Lopunny deck, you can even put the Hoots in, you can play a random Terra Pokemon, you can use the Noctowl to go fetch out your Crispin, and then accelerate to it to have the Spike Hopper attack available. Essentially, this deck is also going to use a lot of Jet energy. Definitely a fun archetype to test around with, and I think this one will see a lot of play. Alright, and that's it for the Pokemon. Now we're hopping into the item cards and the supporter cards. So to start off with, we have this new Jumbo Ice Cream, which does heal 80 damage from your active Pokemon that has 3 or more energy attached. This is going to be relevant because Crustle was essentially playing Super Potion, but Super Potion said you need to discard 1 energy from this Pokemon, and you only get to heal 60 damage. That's why I think this Jumbo Ice Cream will be superior to the Super Potion, but you need 3 energies attached to it, or it does nothing, basically. But for big stage 2 Pokemon as well that are very tanky, or even stage 1 Pokemon such as Archaludon with the Iron Defender, even next turn you can use 2 to 3 Jumbo Ice Cream and just heal off all the damage. Yeah, just imagine. This one is going to see a lot of play. Right, next up we have this Heat Burner, and I think a lot of decks will adopt this one. It says you must discard 1 basic fire energy from your hand in order to play this card. Choose a Pokemon tool, special energy, or stadium card from your opponent has in play and discard it. So just imagine you discard a basic fire energy from your hands and you get to remove a neutralization zone from the opponent. Yes, they lose their race spec, their only win condition against your deck, and you get to discard it with just a simple item card. This is utterly broken, and it doesn't stop there. It does remove special energy as well. So Dragapult, be aware, this item card is going to be a counter against you. Yes, that Neo Upper Energy won't be attached to the Dragapult much longer. And because it's an item card, it can be combined with support cards as well. So just imagine, you discard a fire energy from your hand, you remove the Neo Upper Energy from the opponent's Dragapult, meaning it's not a target anymore, and you can boss's orders a bench Dragapult or even a Dracloak with 1 energy attached to it. Yeah, there goes your board state. And don't think you can play Sparkling Crystal. No sir. This Heat Burner also removes 2 cards. Yeah, I do think this will see a lot of play, especially in Cerulege, Dragapult itself, mainly against the mirror match or maybe some other matches, or you know, the matches that play the neutralization zone to stop the Dragapult. That one will see a lot of play, and this one is no exception. This Grimsley's move is going to be another buff for the dark decks as well. So Grimsley's move says, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You may choose a dark Pokemon you find there. It doesn't state basic stage 1 or stage 2. Just remember that. Shuffle the other cards face down and put them onto bottom of your deck. So you get to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. If those cards are trash, but you do find the Pokemon you need to set up, and then you shuffle the cards again, put them on the bottom of your deck, meaning you get to draw more with the attack of, let's say, the Sharpedo, and you get to plow through the deck further and faster. So you're only left with the cards you do value the most, if that makes sense. But you can't play this card on your first turn. So first turn going second is also your first turn. So this one can only be played on your second turn, which makes a lot of sense because this card is just too broken to play on your first turn going second. So that's why I think all of these dark decks are going to opt to go first, because next turn they can use the Grimsley's move. Alright, next up, setup evolution decks are going to get a huge buff with this Dawn card. So Dawn says search your deck for a basic Pokemon, a stage 1 evolution Pokemon, and a stage 2 evolution Pokemon. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Just imagine you get to play Dawn on your second turn with Venusaur while playing the Venusaur deck, and you have a Vitality Forest into play. You can just search your deck for a Chikorita, Bayleaf, and a Meganium and just put them into play simultaneously. Yeah, I think this new Dawn card is very, very cool. And it doesn't stop there. I think a lot of decks will adopt this Dawn engine. So just think about Chiampao. Chiampao's biggest problem was finding the Baxcalibur and the Rare Candy simultaneously. Well, this Dawn can make sure you have your setup. Yes, I do think this card will see a lot of play. As if Goldengo wasn't broken enough, it is getting a new supporter card. So this new supporter card, Fire Breather, says search your deck for up to 7 basic fire energy cards and put them into your hand, which is essentially almost like an Energy Search Pro, only for fire energies. And imagine you discarding them all in the same turn. That is 350 damage with the Goldengo. But I think essentially this is going to be used with other Pokemon such as the Mega Charizard XEX, as well as maybe Rogue Emboar decks? Who knows? Or maybe even Cerulege. You know, just play 20 fire energy, search out 7, use an Ultra Ball, discard more, or use the Squawkabilly, discard them all. This is a huge support for rogue type decks as well as meta decks, and I'm all here for it. Second to last, we have this Battle Coliseum. Battle Coliseum. So the Battle Coliseum says prevents all damage counters from being placed onto your benched Pokemon. To remember, they can still place it on the active Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, by the effects of the attacks or the abilities used by your opponent's Pokemon. So basically, your opponent can't use any Monkeydoris anymore. Your opponent can't even use the Dusknoir anymore onto the bench. They can still use it onto the active Pokemon. And I think this will be a huge detail to remember. But this being a stadium card means it is easily to bump with an Artisan or a Jamming Tower or whatever stadium you're playing. So this one is easily countered. But nevertheless, I think this card will see a lot of play. And then this card is the supporting card I said that control decks are going to have. So the Vertigo Valley says confused Pokemon, both yours and your opponents, don't recover from confusion when they evolve or devolve. This is going to be huge because the Mismagius tends to confuse the opponent's Pokemon and to the active spot, and with this stadium cards, they don't even recover from the confusion when they evolve, because that was a huge thing. When you evolve your Pokemon, you get to recover from all effects like paralysis or asleep or anything, poison, burn, anything. But this Vertigo Valley is going to stop that. But again, like I said with the Battle Coliseum, it is going to be a stadium card which is easily to bump. We have this new item card which can bump stadiums as well. Be mindful and tech for that. Alright, next up we have Pokemon from the Mega Diancie starter deck. So we have the Mega Diancie EX itself. It has this Diamond Coat ability, which states this Pokemon is taking 30 less damage from attacks, which is going to be huge. And I think this will get to see a lot of play, especially being a one-off in God of War decks, because of its Garland Ray attack. So for 2 Psychic Energy, just imagine you get to accelerate 2 energies with your God of War EX being placed 40 damage onto it, which you can heal off with the Monkeydory, and the attack states discard up to 2 energies from this Pokemon. So essentially, one of God of War's biggest problems was you get to devote your energies to your Pokemon, which those energies are going to be stuck on. But not this Mega Diancie. No, this Mega Diancie states you get to discard the energies. So that means they're not going to be stuck. You can devote even more energies to it because you get to discard 2 of them. And doesn't matter how many energies you put onto it, you can just heal everything off with the Monkeydoris you have in play. And this being a basic Pokemon with 270 HP, it can take a beating. And it doesn't stop that. Psychic is going to get buffed even more so because of this Wonder Patch item card. Just saw the rotation of Dark Patch, which was attach a basic dark energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. This Wonder Patch is the psychic version of it. So it says attach a basic psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. This is going to be relevant if you don't want to place any damage counters with God of War. I know that doesn't make any sense. Just imagine your Pokemon needs just 1 tiny energy card and you don't want to ramp up the damage even more so because you can't even heal more of the damage from it. This Wonder Patch is going to do wonders. Yeah, you see where I'm getting to. And then we get to see the Mega Gengar EX. And I think a lot of Gengar fans will be hyped and thrilled for this one, because this one is going to see a lot of play, because it has this Shadow Hiding ability. When one of your Dark Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon EX, so it doesn't state Mega Pokemon or Terra Pokemon, it just say Pokemon EX. Your opponent takes 1 less prize card. Of course, this effect doesn't stack because that would be utterly broken, but you can manipulate it even further with Legacy Energy. Yes, you can have a Mega Pokemon with Mega Gengar in play and a Legacy Energy to essentially have a 1 prize card worthy Mega Pokemon. It just blows my mind. Yeah, Dark Pokemon are getting a huge support in this set, and I'm all here for it. And it also has this Void Gale attack, which for 230 damage, move an energy card from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. Not only is that Mega Gengar EX going to be worth only 2 prize cards when knocked out by another EX Pokemon, you get to preserve your energies, which is going to be huge. And to finish it off, the Dark types are going to get the Punk Helmet. Yeah, the Punk Helmet is going to be a revengeful punch for the dark types only. So if this Spark Pokemon has this tool attached to it and is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, note, it does need to be attacked. So damage counters are an effect of an attack, so that's not going to count for it. You may put 4 damage counters onto the attacking Pokemon. That is going to be relevant because this new dark type attackers are doing a lot of damage and this Punk Helmet will help them achieving knockouts faster. Alright, and that wraps up the first set review of the upcoming set, Phantasmal Flames. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I can't wait for the pre-releases to start to get myself a kit and just dive into the new format. If you liked it as much as I did, make sure to thumbs up the video, it helps out support the channel, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Alright trainers, I wish you a good day and I will see you in the next video.